Okay, so here's where I'm just going to do some pre-show things, and that is letting people out in the World Wide Web know that we're going on here.
Okay.
So we'll just let the music run for a minute and then we'll get started. Okay. Thank you, Brian. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started because we're kind of on a tight time frame. And so I want to go ahead and just get started. And I hope everybody in here live and everybody listening outside of here can join in to the show and enjoy the show. So you guys are on the Laughter After Trauma show. My name is Deanna. I'm your host. And I'm a speaker, educator, and coach that brings light and lightness to the heavy topic of trauma. I believe that we are all magic and we have everything inside of us that we need to do whatever we want to fulfill our dreams. And I am a thriver after intimate partner violence. And so my journey brought me to find beauty and laughter and healing. And this show really does showcase everyday people who have triumphed in the face of trauma. And it provides hope, awareness, connection, and community, sharing the laughter after. So my guest today is Adina Braun. I met her a while back through some crazy connections, speaking and doing some fitness things for a company that I was involved with, and got to know a little bit about her and learned some interesting things that she's been through in her life. And so we're going to talk about that today, how she went from being displaced to finding her place. She is a former pro fitness competitor. She is currently a certified nutrition coach as well as an ULA life coach, another place that we connect. And she is passionate about helping women and giving them the tools to not just achieve and crush their goals, but continue to thrive in their daily lives. So we can get to know her a little bit better. I'm going to invite you to video. Here we go. Did you get the invite? There you go. Okay. Yeah, it's like a little lag, and then I never know what's happening. So, hey, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
So, Adina, first and foremost, you're in a space right now in your life where you are in service to other people. And I know that journey was that's not where it starts, but I do find a lot of people who have gone through different struggles and traumas in their life find themselves in that place. And so I'd like to hear a little bit about where you are right now, but then maybe some of your story about things that shaped your life and then kind of brought you to this place.
Yeah. So right now, I, like you mentioned, I'm a certified nutrition coach. I have done personal, training for a while, and I love it. I love helping others. I'm also certified in the ULA life coaching, which I also love. And I really find that, the reason I did that is, just to add another tool and just something else that I can pull from, because health and wellness, I realized very quickly, wasn't just eat this and exercise. It was very much People, getting close to people, to my clients, and my clients opening up to me and really talking about trauma. And
Right.
which made me realize early on in my training career, like, you have to be really ready up here in order for anything to come to fruition. So that's where I am right now. And I do love it.
Yeah. I know that your early childhood had some pretty big and significant traumas, and you were young, and first of all, you're not from here. So tell us where you're from.
So yeah, I was actually born in Bosnia, and a lot of people know that as ex-Yugoslavia.
Mhm.
And I was about 6 years old when the war broke out, and I even though I was really young, I remember a lot of it. My mom always says, I don't know how you remember certain things. And I think the reason why, knowing, and I also love psychology, by the way, but knowing psychology way more now, I know that obviously trauma leaves an imprint. Especially, at 5, I remember stuff from when I was 5 even. So, when something traumatic happens, and you're at an age where you could potentially remember, which, 5 is young for most kids, but 6, 6 is pretty good. Like, I feel like you could remember certain things. And for me, I remember pretty much all of it in detail, how it went down. So,
So I'll say that 5 years old is kind of one of those transitional ages where you're starting to get into that place of solidifying memories and starting to understand that there's impacts outside of you that actually work inside too. Like you start realizing your interactions with the world. And I think
right,
that when you have a situation that you were in, and maybe you'll describe a little bit of it. We don't need all the gory details, but knowing how you went from place to get here, um, I think that that type of thing is kind of acute. It's not like chronic trauma. It's not like complex trauma where it maybe was at you personally for so long, but it's an acute thing that leaves just a very, like you said, it changes. It leaves a very huge mark. And so I think that kind of explains why you would remember stuff at that age, you know?
right. Yeah, and yeah, you're right. Like, it's not like nothing happened to me personally, right? Like, physically. It did to my dad, but I think when you're so young, and I think just moving from place to place and having to learn, like, by the time I was 12, I was learning my third language
Hmm.
without even like fully comprehending my mother language even, right? Because I was so young when I left. So I think the trauma is in, well, obviously what happened, right? Like, that's traumatic, like having to leave everything behind, and leaving your family and your friends. I mean, most of my friends were obviously family and cousins at that point, but even
But you
like the
had to
second
run,
time,
right? You
I'm
guys
sorry,
had to you guys had to flee. Like you
we had to
didn't,
flee. Like,
right.
literally, my mom left with a bag, like a carry-on bag,
Hmm. Hmm.
nothing crazy. But yeah, so I feel like just the trauma is in the instability of things, right? Like having to leave, having to switch schools, learning another language, like different cultures, stuff like that. So the trauma was in like, can I trust? Like, is it like ever going to be stable? Are we ever going to stop moving around? Stuff like that. So
And I think too, now that you're saying this, because of the age you were, we don't know what normal is at that age. So we don't really know that what you're living is not what everybody everywhere lives. Your world is so small, really. It's you and your family. And
right,
so whatever is going on, you think, well, that's the same for everybody. And for you, like your cousins and your family, it was. So it was all you knew. And when you live in that, it's the same. It's the same for people who experience physical abuse. It's the same for people who experience sexual abuse. They think that this is how it is. And it takes some distance and some aging where you grow up and your brain starts to develop and you start to understand, oh, wait a minute, no, this is not how it is. Never mind. So you guys moved around a bit. Where did you guys go from there? From like when you left and you ran, where did you land?
so we actually we went to a country that I actually don't really remember. It was like Slovenia or something like that, just for like a couple of days until we could figure it out. But we eventually ended up in Croatia. And most people know that place. We
Hmm.
were there for about a year. We were waiting to see what's happening with my dad. My dad was actually in a concentration camp for about, almost a year. And so we're basically waiting to see if he's gonna come out alive or what's happening. I mean, that's what was
So
happening.
was he a prisoner of war, basically?
I mean, yeah, like I guess, right? I
He
mean,
or he was in a group of people that were being persecuted, basically,
right, right. I mean, if we think
because that
back
was a
to
very ethnic, right? Or
right,
religious.
if
Yeah.
we think back to Nazi Germany, that's exactly what it is,
Right. Hmm.
basically concentration camps. Yeah.
Okay.
So he survived, and when he got released, a lot of the prisoners had like basically what's happening. It's really similar to what's happening with Ukraine right now, where countries started opening up borders for people to come and like get away from being killed. So a lot of countries opened up their borders, and we actually from Croatia went over to Germany because I had an uncle there who had citizenship. He had been working in Germany forever, and so we ended up in Germany for the next 5.5 years.
Okay. Okay. So at this point, you've probably moved, changed schools, and you said three languages. So what were your
Yeah.
languages?
So by then it was so actually Bosnian and Croatian are all the same language. A little bit different. It's like us in England or Australia, a little bit of like maybe some different words, but
Right.
the same language, different
Hmm.
accents. So by the time I went to Germany, that I was 7, yeah, 7, and that was my second language that I started to learn, which if you talk to anybody, German is hard. German
It
is like
is.
one of the hardest languages. But when you're a kid, like you just adopt quicker. And interestingly enough, I took linguistics in one of my college classes, and we actually learned just kids are sponges, like they just pick things up, and we do.
Mhm.
And I think especially when you're just thrown into a group of people, you pick things up. It's really hard to learn a language in a classroom. I've tried it; it's so hard. So I can't really remember like any. I do remember like I'll never forget my first teacher, which is like basically like an ESL class. And she was in Germany. She was just amazing. I'll never forget her. I'll never forget her name. She was awesome. And
What's her name? Share it.
so it was Frau Scheubeck. That was her last name is Scheubeck. I don't remember the first name, but I remember Frau, and Frau means just Mrs.
Right.
But she was I can see her in front of my eyes. She had like short red hair and these glasses, and she was just awesome. And it was just I don't know, it's really interesting because I feel like I had to be independent from very early on. As soon as we moved to Germany, because I was the one who picked things up the quickest, I was then pretty much responsible for helping my family, helping my mom and dad translate things or figure things out. So it's a very different childhood from a lot of kids. Like
Right.
my son does not have to do that, right? Thankfully. Um,
S-
so,
So are you have siblings, right?
yes, I have a younger brother.
A younger brother. Okay.
Hmm.
So I
Yep.
couldn't remember like age wise or how many there were. So you have just one sibling and it's a younger brother. So
Yep.
you kind of, he probably remembers even less than you
Yes.
remember,
Yes.
but you kind of took on, and I get this. I went to a high school that is a charter school out here. So you had to kind of be tested to get into it. It was a magnet charter school. And
Hmm.
so we had a lot of different backgrounds in the school, but there was a lot of Asian, Vietnamese. We have a very like significant Vietnamese community here, which most people probably don't realize in New Orleans. And so we had several of them at school where we used to do the same thing. The kids made sure that the parents understood. They had to translate for them
Yep.
because the parents didn't understand. They came straight first generation here. So you guys were in Germany for several years, and I remember, and I'm going to get off just because this was something I remembered, and I may be misremembering it the first time I heard you speak a little bit about this, that your parents had certain education they'd gotten in Bosnia, but it was not accepted in Germany. Am I correct about this?
Yeah, and it was the same way here. It's just because they're both medically trained, and but
Mm-hmm.
it's so different because the technology was different even back then. Things were different in Germany, and then especially here, of course, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just everything is so different. So, but in Germany, unfortunately, there was a lot of just racism played into it, and my dad was told over and over that he will not get a job because he's an immigrant, and my mom was had to clean homes. I mean, basically, she was a cleaning lady for the 5.5 years that we were there, and that's how we survived.
Right.
So I don't, I have to tread lightly here because I know it still happens to people. Racism still happens on a certain level. I would say things are better because I have a family that actually is in Germany right now and younger cousins who actually have gone from Bosnia to Germany just because of the opportunity. So the way they integrate people now into Germany is actually really amazing. So things have definitely changed that way. But again, I'm sure there's, people still go through a lot of, so that's why I say I want to tread lightly because
Mm-hmm.
I know that things are still happening to people where it's really hard. But what happened to us was straight up like my dad, like I said, my dad was told, you're not going to get a job. And when I think back, I'm like, man, that must have been just really hard, a hard pill to swallow for a man who has survived what my dad survived and is trying to take care of his family and to be told this. And so, those are definitely things that, are also like kind of like, I don't know, like a transferred trauma a little bit. I'm an empath. And so
Mm-hmm.
I feel a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, I mean, that definitely brings, tears to my eyes, just even thinking about the way he was put down and beat up. And so it's not just me who was able to pull myself out of that. I mean, my family is obviously thriving and both of my parents are back in their roles here where, what they did in Bosnia. So
And I want to keep that as a thought and a theme because it's not just a single person's trauma, and I don't think trauma really ever is a single person's trauma. You always have people who are around you that are impacted and feel it, and honestly, they your parents had a significant amount of trauma in all of this, and I'd like to hear how that played into healing or keeping your family connected as opposed to falling apart, because that had to be something that played into even your strength. And I'm assuming, I'm guessing, I could be wrong.
yeah, I mean, I definitely saw my parents obviously, stick together and I saw them work hard. I never heard them complain or give up. So that's definitely played into me being who I am, but also definitely having to be so independent early on. And they just had an attitude. I mean, right? It's like I had no other role models, right? So it's like we move to this place, we figure it out. We move to this place, we figure it out. So that kind of became my thing, even though I have to say like that also became like an unhealthy way because I wasn't really dealing with what happened. It was always just like, oh, it's no big deal to until I
Mm,
met my husband and he was like, no, what you went through is a big deal. And then I actually started like when everything happened with COVID and I actually started getting triggered by things. And so I
mm-hmm.
actually worked through it like years later.
Right.
Um, but it is a big thing. So just seeing them figure it out, it was good for me because it's like, yeah, you figure it out. There's no giving up. You keep going. So that's definitely the strength that I drew from them.
Mm-hmm.
Because of just how they were, and they were always pushing us and you got to do good in school, just like any parent, but even more so because we were immigrants and because you had to work harder, you had to learn the language, you had to assimilate into the culture, and you had to adapt, which is also, I mean, it's like if you don't adapt, you die. I mean, that's basically like I think that's actually a thing what like with humans. It's like
Mm-hmm.
if we aren't adaptable and if we don't adapt, like forget it. You're just not gonna get anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So having the ability, we were obviously forced into it, but I think it could have also gone the other way, where it's like you don't adapt, you don't learn the language, you are on, getting help from the system for the rest of your life. So seeing my parents not do that and learning, like my parents had to go to school, right, to learn German. My parents had to go to school here to learn English, and they did.
Hmm.
So seeing them do all of those things instilled something in me, and that was, sometimes like with like just head through the wall, like let's go, keep pushing. So yeah.
So, yeah, so, and I think a point that I'd like to make here regarding that is that there is a saying out there that says, oh, like maybe you look at a strong woman, and behind that is a woman who had no choice but to be strong. But the truth is that we actually do have a choice, right? You learn from some examples of what that looks like, but your example, like you said, could have been broken and crying and crumbling. And I'm not invalidating anything. Everybody goes through what they go through and how they process it, but it is beautiful that you were modeled that strength and that persistence to persevere, to just we're going to overcome, we're going to overcome, we're going to overcome, even though, like you said, sometimes that can get off balance as well, which is what we always talk about, balance. um, but it was something that you learned so that you knew you could, right?
Right.
You had that agency, that belief that you could, right?
Right.
So you guys wound up in the US. What was that like? So I don't know how you get to all these places and then come here and then.
Yeah, so basically, just a little bit about that. Germany did not want to grant citizenship. And so they were like, you have to go back home. And we're like, we can't like go back home. Things aren't stable, whatever. So we actually had an aunt, my dad's first cousin, who lived here, and she came from Spain. Everybody. I mean, I have family all over the globe. Honestly, like I have cousins I probably never met or never will meet, just because everybody's everywhere. But she went to Spain, and then they wound up here, and she basically was like, I think you guys, need to come here. I can send you paperwork. And so that's basically how it happened. She applied, and back in the day, it was much easier to get family over here. And that's how we actually wound up here. Of course, you go through it's a procedure. Like you don't just get papers and you're over here. We had to go to the doctors, get tested, like it was like, I actually remember parts of this too. And when I had told my friends in Germany, like, I'm moving to America, nobody wanted to believe me, because America is like this huge thing where everybody wants to come. And they were just like, no, you're not, you're lying. And I'm just like, no, I'm moving. So anyway, we ended up here, and that's how we ended up here. And it was just, we moved to California is where my aunt was. And I did not want to be here. It was
Oh,
so big. It just seemed, because if you've ever been to Germany,
I
it's
have.
very pretty, cozy, things are smaller. And
It's
so
little
coming,
villages. It's like
yeah,
little towns. It's
right.
big, but it's little places. Yeah.
Right. And so coming here, it was just big and just cold. The freeways. I mean, that was like foreign to me. I was like, and I was 12, so I was a preteen, and I was just like, I hated here. you know. I did not like it at all, and I think had to just come to terms like this. It like, but we have no other choice. So
Yeah.
this is it. you
Yeah.
know.
So I want to ask a question, or make a statement, but just to kind of point out that in each place that you guys went, you had a little help. And I think that that's important for people also to understand, is that nobody goes through this alone. Like, we don't get through life and our crisis and all the things that happen and all the traumas alone. And when you try to handle and isolate, you won't thrive in that situation. So to not be afraid to ask, because being able to be connected and let people know the things that you need and what's going on, you don't have to tell everybody every detail of your life. But if you don't have that family support, to be able to just kind of put it out there and let people know what your needs are, because people do want to help, you know and it's out there. But we don't go through any of this alone. We don't do it alone. We don't succeed alone. We can go through a lot of things alone. We don't succeed on our own. It takes a village, it takes a tribe. So that's why I like to do this show, because I want people to know that you're not alone, right? We all go through whatever it is, but you're not alone. And if we can do it, you can do it. You're capable. So you got here, you weren't happy camper, you were angsty preteen teenager. So how did things go with that? Because now, like you're going through school here, but your parents are actually kind of going through school here too, right?
Right. Yeah. So really, and that's right. Like, I feel like here we definitely got the most help, which is why I mean, I obviously continue to travel and have traveled and have lived different places, but I'm always very happy to come here. Because there is so much opportunity, which is, watching my parents go through what they went through, which is why I also have very little patience for excuses because I'm just like, there's just so many resources here and we are more alike than we are different. We may be different religions and ethnic backgrounds, whatever, but we're humans and we do go through heartbreak, through pain, through suffering. We do. So we are very alike in that. And we did have help here. So basically, we got here. We basically shared like a 2-bedroom apartment with my dad's first cousin and her family for about 3 months, which is the process of getting on welfare. And then there's like stipulations, like my parents had to go to English school. We of course went to school right away. They had to find jobs, which my dad did, my mom did. And then after 3 months, we moved into our own place. But it was very much like, to me as a preteen, I was like, I can't believe this is happening again. Like, new school, new language. I actually
Mm-hmm.
had just started in Europe. It's a little different. Kids start learning a second language very early on. So in already 6th grade, we had started learning English.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I knew much of it because I left pretty much middle of 6th grade. When I came here, because they go by age, I went to 7th grade. So I still had to go to ESL class, which that stands for English as a Second Language.
Mm-hmm.
And you're with other kids, obviously. So that was really, I remember that as being super fun. It was good. I learned the language, right? By my 2nd year, I was already in an advanced English class, actually. So, languages like pretty much came like after that. It's like I got it. I can learn
Right.
it. It comes fairly easy.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I don't know. To me, it was just kind of like, yep, here we go. Here we go
Here we go
again.
again.
Like, this is
So
just how it's gonna, how it is, and life goes on.
it does. It has a way of doing that. So just as a side note, you're past 3 languages now. How many
Yeah. So
languages do you speak?
now I'm at 12 years old, learning a third language, which is English.
Hmm.
Yep. Yeah.
But I mean, no, currently now in life,
Oh
at this
yeah.
age, you're beyond 3, right?
Yeah, I'm actually going, it's interesting because I wanted to learn French in high school. When the time came to pick a second language, I'm like, I'll do French.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I'm saying, like, learning a language in a classroom, oh my gosh, it was a nightmare for me. I actually, if I'm being honest, I slept. I don't even know how I passed that class. I just slept the whole time. But I did decide to pick up Italian, and it's actually one of my ULA goals. ULA fun goals is to learn conversational Italian next year. So I'm really excited.
Oh,
So
that's fun. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I think languages are fascinating, and I'm not fluent in any other language than English, maybe gibberish, but 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 I know enough about each language a little bit to get by. So, like when we were in
right.
Germany, I could get by. They have a lot of English speaking. When we're in
Yeah.
Italy, I got by, and there's still a lot of English there, but there are certain areas we went to that
Mhm.
were very heavily not English, and I still got by. I had one lady in the store ask me if I was Italian. I'm like, no, thank you, but no, no, I just know how to say this one sentence because I need that belt. But so but it is fun. So that's a great goal. I love that. I love that
Yeah.
fun goal. So then, okay, so you go through school here, you go through college. What did you major in college?
So I studied business marketing.
Mm. That's
I know. It's
sounds
very
so.
opposite of what I'm doing right now.
I was going to say it sounds like so much fun. Yeah. So what brought you? How did that? How did you get from there to, like, I know somewhere in here you have a kid. You were a pro competitor in.
Fitness competitor. Yep.
Yeah. So tell me, like, kind of a short version of that journey.
Yeah, very, and it's a perfect story, right? It's like I moved to Idaho from California because I had gotten married the first time and I was up on the mountain skiing, and that particular day I rented the skis that don't come off easy.
Mm.
And I went up on the mountain, and yeah, the skis did not come off, and I twisted on my basically knee and popped my ACL and MCL. And so that injury basically made me lose a lot of leg muscle to like where my stuff was fitting weird. And I'm like, holy cow, like this is crazy. I've lost so much muscle. And it led me down this path of I need a personal trainer, because even though I was an athlete through high school and college, it's just not weightlifting wasn't as popular as it is today. And so I just didn't have a clue. And this is also when the fitness shows started to become really popular. And so I
Mm.
went and I hired a trainer, and I just said, I need a goal. Like I need something to work towards. And I said, just get me ready for one of these shows. And he was like, okay. So that's honestly, the rest is history. I fell in love with it so much about just, I've always, again, both my parents are in the medical field. I love medicine. I love psychology. I love the human body. And so I think everything kind of came full circle for me
Mm-hmm.
there. And
Mm-hmm.
I just fell in love with it. And I kept competing to get my pro card, which was through the National Gym Association as a, just clean athlete. So no steroids, no nothing. And I just loved it. And then people started reaching out to me, right? Like, for advice. And I was like, this
Mm.
is so crazy. Like, I love that they're asking me for advice, but like, I don't know everything. And that led me down this path of, you know what, I'm going to get certified as a trainer. And so there you have it. It's just like, it kept kind of going. And then I got certified in nutrition, and here we are. Here we are.
Yeah. And so, in all those little things, I like how one thing leads to the next thing leads to the next thing.
Right.
And and so just tell us. I want you to tell us, like, where are you now and what is the reason or the passion behind where you are now? Because I think there's a beautiful story in here too on the personal emotional side, which you do not have to get into, but I do feel like people need to know how the outcome of that, because I feel like it's like a fairy tale story. And I don't know a lot about your personal life when it comes to, like, having whatever relationship and having a kid, but I do know how this led to a new relationship and through your career moves, and I know who you're married to and how those career moves and all of his downfalls led. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's so funny because, I think for the show, I said, like, I really found myself and my place in my 30s. So I feel like there was a lot through my adolescence, like the struggle and I did feel like I didn't belong. Like, where do I belong? I don't know where I belong. Like, I'm never going back to my country. I never felt like, I think more so here, because as a kid, you're kind of like, you assimilate, you kind of feel like you're all the same. But here I was older, and so I felt like, oh, I don't fit in or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just kind of, you keep going. And, you go through the ebbs and flows of life. I got married, I got divorced, I got into another relationship, had a beautiful son, so grateful for him. But also really, had struggle in that relationship and had to get out, right? So after that, but while I still was in that relationship, I had gotten a job at a certain company, which you were also a part of. And that's actually how I met my now husband. They had this is what's funny, and just, it's like fate, right? It's like
Yeah.
when the universe conspires. And they had just signed their contract with this company, and I had met them briefly just for like a photo op, because I was a ambassador for this company. And it wasn't until like a year and a half later, when I had left my relationship, that like we connected. And he just kind of basically reached out to me. He's like, I don't, because we had done some business stuff, because I was an ambassador, and they had I was reading their book, and they had sent me some like swag and whatever, and I was supposed to go to their Ulapalooza self-development event.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we got in touch at first. But then it wasn't like I said, a year and a half later, when he reached out to me, I was like, I don't know if you're single or not. but and so the rest is history. And I'm just like, this is so weird when I look back, how we met, and then knowing his story of building himself up, working hard, and then losing everything in the 2008 crash, and having that struggle, both of us. And I think with him, he actually is the reason that I also was able to look within and say, okay, what I went through is a big deal. But honestly, it's like, I'm just so grateful I found him, right? And also like the people around you, but I think you can cultivate that. I was open. I did open up. And I think because I was just had it up to here with everything. And because
Mm-hmm.
I finally said, I'm just so done. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
want to do me. I want to do life differently.
Mm-hmm.
I was open. I was open, because even some things that he would like advice that he would give to me, I would be like, oh, I don't want to do that. But I did it anyway, like, okay, fine, let me see. Let me do something different than what I would normally do and see where that would go. And it's
Test it
led me,
out, right?
yeah, and it's led me down this path where I have boundaries. I have, a lot more respect for my boundaries. I'm a change, I mean, I am changed. And
Mm-hmm.
now I am living my best life, but it's
Mm-hmm.
because, I did a lot of healing. Yeah, there's crying involved. There's, you think you regret things, but I'm like, don't know. I don't want to regret anything, because there's a purpose for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just really being open to the journey, and, and just my circle is small, but I think that's for the best, because you want to keep those people around that truly, truly, I hate to say this. Someone else said this the other day on a podcast I was listening to. They're like, it's, there's a few that really, really support you and are there for you unconditionally. And that's true. And find those people. I mean, we can have a community of people doing the same things, and that's really fun. Like when I do fitness shows, nobody else understands it, right? So that's why the community is amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's really helped me, is
Right.
just to be open, do things a different way. And there's so much, as there's just a lot of work involved. There's a lot of work involved in completely changing your life to, like, I don't want this. I don't want certain aspects of, the trauma. And because I know people who are still talking about the war, and oh my gosh. And it's like, you guys, that was like 35 years ago, like, or 30
Mm-hmm.
years ago. I'm not, yeah, that happened. I'm going to tell my son that that happened. That's history, right? And it's important to know those things, where you came from, what happened, how did we get on, how did we survive? But to dwell in that, I didn't want that. I didn't want those conversations. I wanted something different. I wanted to look forward and just make the best out of it, because the way I saw it, I'm like, there's a reason I survived. There's got to be. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
honestly because so many
Mm-hmm.
people died, and so many people
Mm-hmm.
do die in a war. So to me personally, I was like, I survived that. I've read books on it. I'm like, how were we able to escape? Like in the
Right.
last minute. And so to me, I took that as a sign. Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
like, I survived. My family survived. We're here. I make the best of it. Like the absolute best of it. And
Right.
so,
You were handed something that a lot of people did not get. And
right.
somebody, I don't know who I'm quoting, but they said to age is a privilege, right?
Yeah.
To
Yeah,
to
I've
to
heard of
get
that
to,
too.
to get to senior age or your golden years or whatever age you are, it's a privilege that a lot of people don't have.
Right.
And I think what you're expressing through this really is two things: hope and gratitude, right? Like one of
Right.
the things that we talk about is the lesson. Like you can dwell in the trauma, and that's and live in the past. And I'm not minimizing trauma because I've been through my own traumas. We've all had whatever levels we've had and how we internalize that. So I'm not comparing. I'm not saying it's not valid, and that we go through these traumas in phases. So we don't ever just like, oh, I'm cured. Trauma
Right.
didn't happen.
No.
No, we go through them in phases. I know even with the war that it brought up some triggers. Every phase or changes in life will bring up those triggers, whether like for me, whether it's from an abusive relationship or what my kids went through, or for you, that war, whatever happened in your relationships, Dave, whatever happened in those past places where you've made these decisions and found yourself in these places, it it comes up, but it's what you do with it. And so I want to read this because I think you'll appreciate this. This is Brene Brown. I don't know if you follow her,
Yes. Yep.
but
Yep.
I just finished going through her Atlas of the Heart and doing that workbook. And because, like, all of my coaching is pretty much trauma informed, but something for me that I kept going, like, I know this is real. Like, I read the books from the guys. This is how I got on into this. This is how we connected in 2015, right? And I was very impacted by that. So I went to Ulapalooza in 2016 and it changed everything for me. In that moment, everything changed. I didn't transform, but I knew that I had something and I had to figure out how to connect that to my heart to share it. And this was it. This quote from Brene Brown connected. Now this I've been doing this for 7 years and this happened, a couple months ago. This is why I said we're always learning and growing, right? So we experience hope when one, we have the ability to set realistic goals. I know where I want to go. Two, we are able to figure out how to achieve those goals, including the ability to stay flexible and develop alternative pathways. I know how to get there. I'm persistent and I can tolerate disappointment and try new paths again and again. And then three, we have agency. And for me, this was the key. We have agency. We believe in ourselves. I can do this. And when I read that, I said, that's why Ulapalooza makes such a difference. You're in a community of all these people who come together and share their experience of doing this, where everybody who says they set a goal last year stands up and stays standing up and says they've at least met one. That's not normal in the everyday world. And knowing that you can set an intention and make that happen is agency. And it was like, bing, that is incredible to, like, just realize that that's why the community aspect of it matters, or why you have to have your accountability partners in your inner circle. We need the people around us because those are the people who help us understand that we can do it.
Right. Yeah,
So how did
exactly. Yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead. If you had a thought, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say the whole thing with Ulapalooza, which is the two-day self-development event, and where you don't just listen to people talking at you, but you dive deep and you start writing out your goals. And that's really after my relationship ended and all of that. I went to one of those. I went in knowing I had a lot of pain and work to do. And that, I mean, I just bawled. I mean, I just cried the whole time. I was like writing down my goals because there was pain and there was trauma there. And I knew that if I wanted to change and if I wanted my life to change and be different and be better, I had to change, right? I couldn't be like, no, I want you to change and you to change. I had to change. And then with that, I watched other people change around me because I had changed.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like the most painful Ulapalooza for me. And then since then, um, they're lighter because obviously as you keep working toward, and I worked towards those goals and I fixed the most important things in my life that needed fixing. And I continue to work on that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
trust me, like it's not, it's not perfect, right? Things come up, life happens. But having Ula as the guide, which as you
Mm-hmm.
know, I do every single year, has really helped me. That's why I say I really come into my own in my 30s because I
Right.
finally had it up to here with everything and just said, I'm done. Like, screw it. Like, I want to do it different.
Right.
Because I just couldn't. I'm like, there's no way this is gonna be my life for the rest of my life. Like, that's what I kept thinking. It was so weird and so strange. But yeah, and then it had to explode. It had to explode for me to kind of for it to throw me into a different direction because yeah,
Right.
I mean, it's
Well,
behind
and
me,
I
right?
mean,
So
that's
now
the
I'm here.
thing. Right, that's the thing. You can just explain it like inertia, energy, whatever it is. It's just going to keep rolling until it hits something that makes it stop and go
Yeah.
a different way. And all of our thresholds are at different places. And so we take it till we can't take it anymore. It's nice when you learn how to develop that healthy level of disgust, right? And make the changes before it gets to that. But
Yeah.
a lot of times that's not how it goes. That's not how it happens. We don't recognize it until it does. And
Yep.
we have to make those changes. But I do think that one of the biggest things I ever learned in that first Ulapalooza and what I worked for the entire next year was that gratitude aspect and learning what that means and what it took for me to get to there, because I had a lot of forgiveness that I had to go through to get there. And so I think that that was like a huge component for me, and I cried more on the accelerator than the blocker, you know.
Right.
But I don't want to keep going. I want to wrap up because I know you have your time and dinner and we have our time differences, zones, time zones that mess me up all the time. I would love to hear you give us maybe 2 or 3 things that you would like to say. This is what I want you guys to take away from our conversation today.
Yeah, I just think the belief in yourself and that you are here for, we're all here for a purpose. The purpose being very simple, like to just live life and enjoy. If we can take it a step further and like help someone else or with the work that we do or whatever, that's even greater, right? But there's you have a purpose. There's something that you can take away from each lesson, each hardship. When talking about trauma, I know it's interesting today because we have to say like we don't discount, like we can't discount anybody's trauma. And this is something where I struggled because I'm like, oh, it's fine, it's not a big deal. But it's
Mm-hmm.
like what I went through is a big deal. What anybody goes through, to them, if it was traumatic or hard, is a big deal. But there's a lesson to be learned in that. So you're here for a purpose. And there's a lesson, whatever your trauma is or hardship, there's a lesson and that you can learn. Secondly, man, there's like so many things. Surrounding yourself, and really using the resources that are available, reaching out. Like you said in the beginning of the show, reaching out for help. I was not a person who would even want to ask for help, because I think because of early on I learned just do it. So it was like I can do it on my own. And the fact of the matter is that no, we can't, not all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So surround yourself with good people. Resources are there, to really change your life, because
Mm-hmm.
it starts with you. So and then just living in gratitude. And I know some people will look at it and be like, oh, that's just fluff, because I've had people say this to me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Toxic positivity, because now we have a
right.
new buzzword.
Right. But the truth of the matter is, it's not if you take it seriously. And,
Mm-hmm.
for me, of course, I've read the Eckhart books and all sorts of, books, just to open up my mind and just to
Mm-hmm.
be open to taking it easy and taking it slow, because I was very intense. And again, I believe that just stems from my childhood of just, things were hard. Like I had to, I mean, when you like at 7, 8 years old, I had to translate things and call the government for my parents to figure out paperwork. I mean, that's a big job for a kid who is under 10, right?
Right,
So
right.
I was used to just like being hard and pushing and going. And it really, again, took what happened to me for everything to just blow up for me to really look for the change. And all of these things happen, right? I started surrounding myself with different people. I started living in gratitude and really open to learning something different, and it made me calmer. It made me calmer, and it brought more peace, to my life. And
Yeah.
then really just understanding and believing. For me, obviously, like having survived a war, I was like, I'm here for a reason, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a purpose. Sometimes I think we associate, oh, what's my purpose, with a job. But that's not true, because like I said in the beginning, and this is something that I read in one of my books, our purpose is to enjoy life, to experience this life. And then if we can, through our work or however, I mean, honestly, even smiling at someone may help someone's day. If you can do that, then that's even obviously better, and it makes you feel good and it makes the other person feel good. So I think those are the three things for me that happened, right? Believing my purpose, making something out of it, living in gratitude, daily, just for the simple things. Like, I'm grateful we're able to do this and talk about this and share our stories. And I'm sure it'll help someone pull something from this. And then what did I say? Did I say living in gratitude? I'm
Yes,
like,
living in
I'm
gratitude,
I have so many
and
thoughts.
know that you have purpose, and that your purpose and you have a
Right.
reason, right? Like,
And right. And the third one was surrounding yourself with the right people. And I mean, this is not perfect at all times, right? There's gonna be people that may not belong, right? Or whatever. But just knowing, like, seeking out the self-development events, seeking out help in other ways, a life coach or whatever it is, because there is help out there. And we all have a story to share. And I think that's super important to connect in that way, because like you said in the beginning, when you don't ask for help and you're just suffering on your own, you're not going to go anywhere. If anything, it'll kill you.
right.
And if you do reach out, it can help you thrive and it'll help you survive and heal. So I think that's really important.
I love that. Survive and heal. So, because, one of the books, The Body Keeps the Score, you keep your issues in your tissues. So, we need to have this type of open conversation so that people start feeling comfortable about having the open conversation.
Right.
So, Adina, I really want to thank you for coming on. I totally appreciate it, because I know we kind of had some crazy stuff happening with the app. The times were crazy because we had that mixed up. So I do appreciate you taking your time, coming here, sitting with us today, talking about this. I like to tell people I see you and you're beautiful. I fully believe that. Um, like you, I'm an empath. So I do see, I see you. And all of that stuff that built up, no matter how quickly you want to talk about it, it's there, but it's shining outward now. And I said this right when you and Dave first started posting stuff on Instagram, and I was like, you know how you can see it. You can see it through someone when it's just real and it's there. And that's what I see. And so I really appreciate you coming on here, and just sharing with me for this 50 minutes overtime now, 10 minutes over.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. And I love, sharing your trauma or things you've survived. I don't like to talk about it all the time, but I will talk about it if I feel like it's helpful and it's
Mhm.
valuable and it'll help someone, because you're right. We do need to start sharing more. We all have some sort of trauma.
Right.
We
And I
do.
just think,
And
like, here, it's very easy to see that you found your laughter after. You've got
right.
a
A hundred
beautiful
percent.
new,
100%. And I want people to understand, life is not perfect. So even if someone says I'm living my best life, which I am living my best life and I'm grateful, it's still life. I mean, I'm doing what I love and I'm surrounded by people that I love and my life has changed in so many ways. But it's still life. You still have your challenges, but I think I'm way more prepared now, to handle those challenges in a very different way than how I would have handled it even like just 7 years ago. And so
yeah.
that's what the important thing is, and that's where I find a lot of peace. Is even when the challenges do come up, and they do, I have the tools because I've worked through a lot of things to respond in a different way, to handle it in a different way. So,
And
yeah.
that's, again, we all
Yes,
need, like,
100%.
I'm
Yep.
a coach, you're a coach, and I get coached, and I'm sure you do too,
Yes. Yep.
because we need that. We need it. We all need it. It doesn't matter. We don't
Yep.
graduate. We don't graduate from life,
No,
people.
you don't graduate from life. No.
So that's that. All right. Well, again, I want to thank you.
Thank
I'm going to
you.
go ahead and close out the show. I want everybody to know here, you can follow Adina on Instagram. She's called Adina Fit on Instagram. And you can go over there. You can follow her. She's got every tip in the book, from the old stuff to the new stuff. You go look it up and see. It's an amazing account to follow. And I am also going to say that next week, I don't actually have a guest booked for next week, and I'm going to try something a little different where I get on here and I just have a free form talk, and I'll let people come up on stage and we'll chat. And I'll get the topic put up here within the next day or so. But as I said to Adina, I like to say to you guys, I see you. You're beautiful. Until next time, I want you guys to love each other, stay connected, and shine on. Bye, guys.